Stru/struct comes from the Latin verb struere, meaning to put together, build, arrange. A structure is something that's been constructed, that is, built or put together. Instructions tell how the pieces should be arranged. Something that obstructs is a barrier that's been built to stand in your way. And something destructive unbuilds. Deconstruction analysis of texts, works of art, and cultural patterns that is intended to expose the assumptions on which they are based, especially by exposing the limitations of language. Deconstruction has been performed on Huckleberry Finn by English professors so many times that it's a wonder there's anything left of it. Deconstruction doesn't actually mean demolition, instead it means breaking down or analyzing something, especially the words in a work of fiction or nonfiction, to discover its true significance, which is supposedly almost never exactly what the author intended. A feminist may deconstruct an old novel to show how even an innocent-seeming story somehow depends on the oppression of women. A new Western may deconstruct the myths of the Old West and show lawmen as vicious and criminals as flawed but decent. Table manners, The Sound of Music, and cosmetics ads have all been the subjects of deconstructionist analysis. Of course, not everyone agrees with deconstructionist interpretations, and some people reject the whole idea of deconstruction, but most of us have run into it by now even if we didn't realize it. Infrastructure. 1. The underlying foundation or basic framework. 2. A system of public works. The public loved her speeches about crime but dozed off when she brought up highway repair and infrastructure deterioration. Infra means below, so the infrastructure is the underlying structure of a country and its economy, the fixed installations that it needs in order to function. These include roads, bridges, dams, the water and sewer systems, railways and subways, airports, and harbors. These are generally government-built and publicly owned. Some people also speak about such things as the intellectual infrastructure or the infrastructure of science research, but the meaning of such notions can be extremely vague. Construe. 1. To explain the arrangement and meaning of words in a sentence. 2. To understand or explain, interpret. She asked how I had construed his last email, and I told her that something about it had left me very worried. Construe can usually be translated as interpret. It's often used in law, thus, an attorney general might construe the term serious injury in a child abuse law to include bruises, or a judge might construe language about gifts to heirs to include spouses. The IRS's construal of some of your activities might be different from your own, and much more expensive at tax time. Construing is also close to translating, so when the British say public school, for instance, it should be construed or translated as prep school in American terms. Instrumental. 1. Acting as a means, agent, or tool. 2. Relating to an instrument, especially a musical instrument. His mother had been instrumental in starting the new arts program at the school, for which she was honored at the spring ceremony. An instrument is a tool, something used to construct. It's often a tool for making music. A musical saw happens to be a carpenter's tool that can be played with a violin bow, though you probably wouldn't want to play a wrench or a pair of pliers. The musical meanings of instrumental, as in it starts with an instrumental piece or a jazz instrumental, are common. But the meanings helpful, useful, and essential, as in he was instrumental in getting my book published, are just as common. Prop/propri comes from the Latin word proprius, meaning own. A proprietor is an owner, and property is what he or she owns. And the original meaning of proper was belonging to oneself, so a writer around the year 1400 could say with his own proper sword he was slain, even if we might not say it quite the same way today. Proprietary. 1. Relating to an owner or proprietor, made or sold by one who has the sole right to do so. 2. Privately owned and run as a profit-making organization. The local hospital was a not-for-profit institution, whereas the nearby nursing homes were proprietary. A proprietary process is a manufacturing process that others are forbidden to use, and a proprietary trademark is a name that only the owner can use. Legal rights of this kind are ensured by copyrights and patents. After a certain period of time, inventions and processes lose their legal protection, cease to be proprietary, and enter the public domain, meaning that everyone can use them freely. Baseball fans often take a proprietary attitude toward their favorite team, that is, they behave more or less as if they own it, even though the only thing they may own is the right to yell from a bleacher seat till the end of a game. Propriety. 1. The state of being proper, appropriateness. 2. Acting according to what is socially acceptable, especially in conduct between the sexes. Propriety used to forbid a young unmarried man and woman to go almost anywhere without an adult. In an earlier era, when social manners were far more elaborate than they are today, propriety and impropriety were words in constant use. Today, we're more likely to use them in other contexts. We may talk about the propriety of government officials' dealings with private citizens, the propriety of the relationship between a lawyer and a judge, or the impropriety of speaking out of turn in a meeting that follows Robert's Rules of Order. Relations between men and women still present questions of propriety, but today it's often in the workplace rather than in social settings. Wherever rules, principles, and standard procedures have been clearly stated, propriety can become an issue. Something improper usually isn't actually illegal, but it makes people uncomfortable by giving the impression that something isn't quite right. Appropriate. 1. To take exclusive possession of, often without right. 2. To set apart for a particular purpose or use. It was one of those insulting words that sometimes get appropriated by a group that it's meant to insult, which then starts using it proudly and defiantly. From its roots, the verb appropriate would mean basically make one's own, that is, take, or sometimes grab. Each year the President and Congress create a budget and appropriate funds for each item in it, funds which mostly come in the form of taxes from the public. In the House of Representatives, the powerful Appropriations Committee often gets the last word on how much money goes to each program. Misappropriation of funds, on the other hand, is a nice way of saying theft. If someone appropriated pieces of your novel, you might take him or her to court, and if you appropriated trade secrets from your former employers, you might be the one sued. Expropriate. 1. To take away the right of possession or ownership. 2. To transfer to oneself. It was only when the country's new government threatened to expropriate the American oil refineries that Congress became alarmed. In ancient Rome, an emperor could condemn a wealthy senator, have him killed, and expropriate his property. In 1536, Henry VIII declared himself head of the new Church of England and expropriated the lands and wealth of the Roman Catholic monasteries. And nearly all of North America was expropriated from the American Indians, usually without any payment at all. Today, democratic governments only carry out legal expropriations, in which the owners are properly paid for their land, for example, when a highway or other public project needs to be built.